it's tempting to think, this is my violin, and I'm playing this thing for years and years, and this is the violin that I play on, and it becomes a part of you. But it's really the other way around. It's just, this thing's just going through a series of people.
No indictments yet in the case of the missing Stradivarius. A violin valued at $4 million has been stolen from a woman's Fifth Avenue apartment. A rare sour note for a musical masterpiece that's been making beautiful music for 268 years.
I mean, this is a major art heist. The story is actually quite sad.
The whole thing was so traumatic. This cuckoo bananas, like crazy Agatha Christie story.
It's on the top 10 art crimes in the FBI.
She was a very important female violinist.
Arguably the best woman violinist in history.
She didn't like woman in there.
The violin had been kept in a locked closet. Since there was no sign of forced entry, authorities believe the thief had keys.
When the Morini violin went missing, that was a famous moment.
Her life was fascinating and her career was truly stellar, important, and now she's forgotten.
Erika Morini's brother points out that her violin, which was made 268 years ago, is not something you could sell at a pawn shop.
This violin is unsellable. That's good, thank God.
Now, the violin is still out there. It's always been a piece of unfinished business for me.
It's somewhere, and the mystery goes on.
As the investigation continues, the violinist's family says they take some comfort in the fact that she died never having to suffer the heartbreak of knowing that her precious violin had been stolen.
This is a violin made by Antonio Stradivari in 1715. It has the name Baron von der Leyden.
I'm very, very lucky to be the recipient of the 1742 Guarneri del Gesù, known as the Ex Bazzini Ex Soldat.
This is a violin by Jean-Baptiste Vuillaume. It was made in Paris in 1865. This violin was made around the Civil War time, so it's not really that long ago, but it's middle-aged for an instrument.
It is a Stradivarius cello made in 1727.
I play on a violin made by Antonio Stradivari in 1715. It is nicknamed the Lipinski Stradivarius.
Well, it has a name, it's not a very sexy name. Technically, it's the ex Bein, Fru.
The violin isn't a tool, it's like the voice box. It translates the physical motions and input that you give it into sound.
It has a certain sweetness of tone, but at the same time, it has this power.
One of the interesting things about these instruments is that they're so even. Like the register down here, the lowest note on the violin is here, You can get into a 3,000 seat hall and it's loud. And it's even.
What makes something valuable is being consistent, being artful, being able to promote yourself, and making the numbers. Our family has made a total of 800 instruments all together. My grandfather, my father, myself, and my sister included. Strad made over 1,200.
He did things that no one had ever done before. He took precepts from other makers around at the time, and he put it all together in a form, in a violin form, that to most violin experts is kind of like the Bureau of Weights and Measures version of a violin. This is the iconography, violin iconography of Antonio Stradivari, published by a guy who decided to just do the research on every single Stradivarius known. And so this book is not very interesting if you don't like violins, because all it is pictures of violins. This is, for example, this is the Davidoff Strad. This is where it sits. In 1727, this violin was made, in one of the great periods for Stradivarius. I saw it once when she showed it to me. The great thing about this violin was the varnish. I remember the varnish was just dark and luscious, just beautiful.
Erika Morini was an Austrian violinist born in 1904, and she made her first tour to the United States in 1921, which is actually when she made her debut with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra.
She was incredibly gifted.
She had this meteoric career, and at a time when it was quite uncommon to be a woman soloist.
This was a man's game back in the old days. There were no women in orchestras.
She had this sound that was sort of electrifying.
Erika Morini's technique was just impeccable. The cleanliness and intonation, the elegance of her playing, her clearly defined purpose for every phrase that she did.
She had a unique distinction with this recording. She was not only the first violinist to record with the orchestra, but she was also the first woman to commercially record with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra.
I actually made a poster for my daughter of what I consider to be the 10 greatest women violinists who are dead. They don't always get the recognition that they deserve when you talk about the great violinists. Their names don't come up as often in the mix as they ought to.
Such a tragic story in the end, but at the pinnacle of her career, she was, equal to anybody out there.
Erika Morini had not played her Stradivarius violin in concert since she retired in 1976. The famed violinist was 91 when she died yesterday. Her father bought the Stradivarius 75 years ago for $10,000. When it was stolen last month, the violin was valued at $4 million.
This is a picture that Erika gave to my mother. I'm not sure of the year, but it has a 24 here, and we're wondering if that maybe is her age at this time. To my very dear friend Catherine, with love, Erika. My name, absolutely was Erika right before I was even born. My mother was very fond of Erika and had made up her mind that if a daughter arrived, it would be Erika.
Well, my name is Valerie Erika Bradford, and I'm the youngest of 5. We just knew her as Auntie Erika.
This is a string of pearls that Erika gave to me shortly before she died.
She became a part of my life when we went to visit her, and then became somewhat of a caretaker for a period of time.
So in 1999, I was a fledgling freelance writer after switching careers. I was a single mom and really trying to get started as a journalist. It had everything I love. It had an old apartment building, New York City, a stolen violin, all of the elements I thought were in place. And I ended up finding most of the principles in this crazy story.
The case stands out to me because of the importance of the violin, first of all. I mean, if you talk to violin dealers, this is supposed to have been an extraordinary instrument. And, you know, the prominence of the owners is another. She was a world-famous violinist. And there's the mystery of it. You know, they always talked about this as like an Agatha Christie kind of event. You have like 6 or 7 people around the victim. You have an unexplained circumstance. You have something gone missing and who is responsible. And there's very little or no evidence.
What brought you down there for those initial visits that were near the end of Erika's life?
I could remember my mother asking me to go and visit her. My mother was elderly and was not able to make any such trip. And she said, go down and see how your Auntie Erika is.
I must have been 28 or 30, maybe. So we came in and didn't know we were walking into something that was a little more serious than we realized. You know, she basically was alone, living in her apartment, a very beautiful, big Fifth Avenue apartment.
The apartment was really somebody could look on it as a treasure trove.
You've heard about the house, right?
I remember it as being a big, grand, old doorman building on Fifth Avenue.
You open the door, which is like sort of a metal door, and it comes into this beautiful apartment, a 5-bedroom apartment.
If you ever read Great Expectations, it was Miss Havisham. Heavy curtains, tassels everywhere.
Large rooms, tall ceilings.
Overstuffed chairs, fancy carpets.
It actually smelled a little moldy.
Just a sprawling, musty apartment that had been lived in for decades.
And everything just a little dingy, maybe more than just a little.
But it was, you know, what she knew and her place in her glory at some point.
In addition to being, I guess, very wealthy, Erika Morini was also very cheap. And an essential issue here with the whole story was her violin. I think it was insured for up to maybe $800,000. And at the time of her death, it was worth around $3.5 million. People urged her to insure the violin and to keep the violin in a vault. And she wouldn't. She kept it in a closet. I remember seeing the closet. It was just a closet. It was like, Rrr.
It was just in this closet that was locked with a skeleton key, an old-fashioned skeleton key, easily broken into. And there were dishes in the closet. It was all, you know, full of junk. And there was her violin.
The closet was simply a door, and there was a skeleton key.
There was a key to the door, but everybody knew where the key was.
I said, Erika, why don't you let me take this violin and put it in a bank? And then we'll lock the door, and you don't have it. It's climate controlled. You don't have to worry about it. And she, oh no, I need my violin nearby. I need it close. So when it got stolen, I thought, well, if I had been more forceful or had really advised her better, I could have protected that violin.
I recall her getting the violin, or maybe asked me to get it. She's sitting to the left in a chair.
According to Valerie Bradford, Mrs. Morini showed her how to hold the Strad, and Valerie thought that was really thrilling.
I get the violin out of the closet. I don't even know if it was locked, to tell you the truth. And I brought it to her sitting in the chair. She opened it, and she says, no untrained hands on this violin. And I don't know that I held it, but I held the neck of the violin. And that was as much as I got to sort of handle it, but it was always talked about, you know, make sure the violin is there. And that's what we did until it wasn't.
In mid-October 1995, Erika Morini was having some issues and needed to be hospitalized.
What happened is I was there alone with her, evidently staying overnight. And she became very distressed and in pain.
She had congestive heart failure. She was unable to walk. She had a number of maladies.
I called 911, and she was very upset, very upset.
She was angry at you?
Yes, yes. Well, she was unhappy in the hospital, and
remember she had said
down.
She wanted to die at home, We promised her she would die at home, and we got the bed delivered to the house, and that was the day that the violin was found to be stolen. But we promised her she would die at home. I'm sorry to interrupt. But that is how that went down.
When she was brought to the hospital, I was told that she did not want to go, and she just pulled herself up, from on the gurney and said, "I'm not sick. I'm not sick." Well, she was. She clearly was. And soon thereafter, she was released, and then she died.
About 2 weeks later, Erika Morini was coming home from the hospital, really to die, and the Bradfords were there making sure the apartment was ready for her with a hospital bed and that kind of thing, and discovered in checking around the apartment that the violin was missing.
We arrived, and the first thing I said was, "I'll check for the violin. You go check in the bedroom." Or Val said, one or the other, she said, "You go check for the violin and I'll look at the bedroom and figure out what we're gonna do." Immediately I could see the case that was there was not the case with the violin in it.
I just recall hearing,
I said, "Val,
it's gone."
It's
and I said, "What?" She said, "The violin."
The violin is gone. And so we began looking all around in closets, and I mean, it was ridiculous, but we didn't know what else to do.
We looked around and couldn't believe our ears, our eyes, and we then called the police.
One reason I loved writing about this was that I was casting the movie as I went. Like, if you could lock all of these people like onto a cruise ship, you would have the most amazing play. Jim Wynn was an FBI investigator. Cool, funny.
My name is James Patrick Wynn, and I worked for the FBI for 30 years as a special agent. I primarily worked in major theft investigations dealing with art, antiques, and other kinds of collectibles.
One of the best agents I've ever had on the squad. Really. I would never want him looking for me, I'll tell you that. Ever.
Nothing was upset, nothing was broken, nothing else was taken, I don't think, that we're aware of. It's like the murder on the Orient Express.
There were obviously building people, building staff. This was a doorman staffed building, and a few of the doormen knew who she was and that she had a violin.
Erika Morini had a brother who I knew quite well, Frank Morini. Frankie, everybody called him.
Erika Morini's brother, Frank Morini, he was an art dealer in New York.
All her concerts, her recital, she played on this violin, who was really her baby.
Okay, so then there's the accountant. Erika Morini and her husband had an accountant for like 45 years.
Her accountant and financial advisor, Peter Sapphire. He was handling her bills, and he was hiring the medical help, and he was the executor for a time of the estate. Brian Skarstad, who was a violin expert, craftsman, and broker, he was around a bit.
Brian Skarstad came into Erika Morini's life really in the last year of her life.
At that point, there were lots of people around the world who had that much money, who had $3-4+ million to buy a violin. It would have set a record for Stradivari sale at that time.
The violin was her life, it was her family, it was her world.
There was a mother-daughter duo, Erika Bradford and her daughter Valerie.
Erika Bradford had been named after Erika Morini and had been a longtime family friend, and became involved in trying to assist in the daily requirements that Erika Morini had.
My mother is the one who started us going in to see her.
I do understand how that could possibly be misconstrued as somebody just coming in and trying to take over. You know, they questioned what we were doing there.
Neighbors in the building included Mrs. Tomberg and her adopted son, Lucien Orchel.
She just picked up the intercom and asked the doorman, "Please ask Lucien to come up."
Lucien was a Romanian national, And within a couple of years of his arrival in the United States, he had been adopted by Mrs. Tomberg as her son.
Mrs. Tomberg, I think, was somewhere in her 80s at that time, and Lucian was probably somewhere in his mid-40s, I think.
And they were living in this apartment in the building, and that's how he met Erika Morini.
I had no idea that she had a violin.
In my mind, between the people who had genuine compassion for her as a human being and the people who were just sort of sucked in and fascinated by the decline and the rumors of great wealth, you know, hidden everywhere in the apartment.
Stradivarius, a violin valued at $4 million, has been stolen from a woman's Fifth Avenue apartment.
The violin had been kept in a locked closet. Since there was no sign of forced entry, authorities believe the thief had keys.
Panic, horror, disbelief.
Why was it that when you walked in, that was the first thing you thought to do? To check
We kind of always did, didn't we?
That was the most valuable thing to her heart and actually to anyone's pocketbook, quite frankly.
Which one of you called?
I did.
Yeah, I said, Val, you call. I'm too upset.
And I called 911 and they're like, they had no idea what I was talking about. I said, it's a violin, a Stradivarius violin from Auntie, you know. They're like, what?
I was telephoned by the Bradfords in sort of a hysterical phone call. The violin's been stolen, I remember. So the violin was probably stolen when she was in the hospital by someone who had access.
The violin had been kept in a locked closet. Since there was no sign of forced entry, authorities believe the thief had keys. Because of her declining health, no one ever told Morini the violin had been stolen.
I do recall us saying we can't tell her. We just can't tell her.
Yeah, and I would have, if I put in my 2 cents worth, I would have said the same thing.
Yeah.
It just, she was on her deathbed, and what's to be gained by that?
I understood that no one told her that the violin had been stolen. When I was brought into the case, she was already in the hospital, and they were making arrangements for her to return home.
And we did get her home. Did she die at home? No. I thought she came home. No?
No.
Okay. Yeah, see, I wasn't, you know, going back and forth.
It was too much. Too much. For, you know. But, no, she never came home. But we gave it a good go.
I just accepted it when she had died, and I just, you know, felt terrible about the violin. That was the main thing.
I don't recall how I found out Erika died, but we knew she was dying. I know that she had thrush in her mouth, and she was in a very bad state.
The whole thing was so traumatic.
It's my opinion, based on my experience, that the hardest cases are these mysterious disappearance cases, especially when you don't have any physical evidence. All we're doing initially is relying on the statements of people to try and figure out who may not be telling the truth or what the true circumstances are.
The agent in charge, Jim Wynn, was a very smart guy and a very tenacious investigator. And he came cold into this.
The way I learned about art and that world was case by case. So I never had a case involving Strad.
He would call me at my workbench, and we would have long conversations about who were the various people, who was floating around. Stradivarius, tell me about that.
The initial phase of the investigation involved interviewing all the people who were close to Erika Morini. There was no forced entry to the apartment. There was no forced entry to the closet. So someone had the keys. Normally in cases like this, you collect physical evidence if there is any, and then it's important to make notice to the public.
Part of what makes the story so colorful, every single character is very happy to talk about it, and they all indicted themselves. I mean, they would say the most damning things about their contact with Erika Morini and this stolen violin, and then they would go like, I wonder why I'm a suspect. You know, it was crazy like that.
It's been widely reported even by these people who who we all interviewed a number of times, that there were polygraph examinations given.
I did a lie detector test, and I didn't steal the violin, and so I didn't have anything to worry about, but it wasn't that simple.
Valerie, I think, took 2 lie detector tests, and I think she characterized, when I asked her how she did on these lie detector tests, she said she hadn't quite passed.
I remember it was on my birthday, December 12th. I went in believing that I would do fine, and knew I didn't take the violin, and it showed deception, and it was devastating to me. I just thought, well, this was a very bad idea.
Well, the use of the polygraph, I think, was a natural kind of occurrence in a case like this.
The one question that hung her up was, do you know who has the violin?
Questions were quite difficult, just a general person. And then, of course, the violin question, which is clearly I didn't take it, but it was uncomfortable, and that was just the beginning of the problems with the FBI.
I don't want to really comment too much more about the polygraph. I mean, the results were not productive in terms of developing evidence for us.
Do you remember the agent?
Jim Wynn. Had you heard his name before?
I interviewed him, yeah. I'm just wondering what what you remember about him.
I remember he was aggressive. They felt that I had stolen it, and they had a reason to believe that I did because I wasn't gainfully employed at the time. Mom was sort of off the hook because she was a little bit older and had a family and this and that. And they said, if you tell us where the violin is, we won't prosecute you. Mother had it a little easier.
They didn't feel like they had enough to make an arrest, I guess. They couldn't. So they called a grand jury downtown, a federal grand jury.
We had to go to a grand jury to decide whether we were going to be indicted for the theft.
There was a man in the grand jury that was asleep in the front row. I do remember that. And just regular questions. Where was I? What did I do? What do I think happened to the violin? And it was pretty brief.
I don't remember it being brief. I just recall I was so frightened that I was going to be arrested. It went on for years. The FBI involved with my friends, calling them. I'd just hear out of the blue somebody say, you know, the FBI got in touch with me about you. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. So I was always worried, and I still am today.
I felt that we were totally out of our league. We didn't know about all these New York people, and we were just kind of country bumpkins there, and felt very out of place and very under scrutiny.
As they said to me, they hoped to shake the apple from the tree. That was their term, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. There was no arrest was resulted. So it was too bad.
We really ended up with not very much.
What year was the violin stolen?
1995. 26 years ago.
How many?
26 years ago.
Wow.
26?
It's crazy.
Oh my goodness.
Is that longer than you thought?
Yes. Yes.
No,
it
is longer.
Oh. I can't believe it.
The case is 25 years old, and as I look at it, to me it kind of irks me a bit. It's unfinished business. That's why I'm sitting here, because I want to see something come of this. And while I am hopeful, I don't particularly think that it may happen.
I remember at the end of one phone call, I said, well, Jim, you haven't asked me if I stole the violin. I said to him, you haven't asked me if I stole the violin. And he's this long pause. And he said, well, did you? And I said, no, I stood to gain more on sale. He said, that's why I didn't ask you. In the subsequent years, people would always include me in the list of suspects, which was ridiculous, because you know, in an Agatha Christie novel, that yes, maybe I would be, but in the real world, no.
The statute of limitations has run on the theft. And there was even a $100,000 reward at the time this occurred.
That's a huge reward, more than $100,000 tonight for the return of a missing masterpiece.
There are elements out there that maybe could result in someone deciding they want to come forward and return it.
So here's the funny thing about these objects. When we see them anew, they're earth-shattering. They transform our experience because they're so radiant and beautiful. And then we begin to recalibrate the way we live. It's a sort of a human condition thing. And we normalize their presence in our lives. And we forget that they are extraordinary objects, that they are rare objects, that they are valuable objects. And so when something like that suddenly goes missing, we're forced to into a collision, if you will, with the extent to which we've taken it for granted, and suddenly we realize that we're vulnerable, and the objects that we care about are vulnerable. So the FBI, with some regularity, has contacted me and sent me, usually the first point of contact is photos, and most of them are not valuable violins, and I just tell them immediately, no, that's not a valuable violin. In terms of instruments that were worthy, I mean, the most interesting one for me personally was the Lipinski, because I was directly involved with that. My company was directly involved with that.
When was it stolen?
2014. January 27th, 2014. Funny, I remember that day pretty well.
The backstory is that Frank was playing for a long time the Lipinski Stradivari from 1715, and my company was charged with taking care of that violin for the owners.
Well, it was sort of a normal, concert on my series. We had a dress rehearsal in the morning. The showcase was really the second half, which was the quartet for the end of time. It draws you in so much as a performer, and it's so emotionally packed that it's quite an experience, both, I think, to listen to and to play. Probably won't forget that opening for a while. That morning, it was like 4 degrees or something. But by the time the night had fallen, the temperature dropped considerably. Yeah, I was really happy that I'd found a parking space fairly close to the stage entrance. I noticed that there was a van backed in directly next to my car, and it was running also, which I thought was unusual, but not that strange because we had had a reception. Could be somebody picking up somebody from the reception, but I didn't know. As normal, I would have a routine of getting it into the back seat and sort of strapping it in, and a few things to take care of. And in that time, someone had walked around from the driver's side of the van. He was getting closer and closer. At one point, he just very slowly opened his coat, and there were these little flashing lights, And I remember thinking, like, why is that guy taking my picture, And it wasn't the camera. And I just went down, and as I was going down, he obviously grabbed the violin and jumped back in the van. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm glad it was a taser and not something else. It's like just getting hit with 50,000 volts or so. It's a very effective weapon for some things. I remember being completely paralyzed and on the ground. I was on my feet in time to see the van drive away around the corner.
He called me, it was late at night, cold January night, and the Lipinski violin had just been grabbed from him, and he was tased, and he was in a panic. Frank, who's normally very articulate and clear, was having a little trouble getting it out to tell me what had happened.
Then began this almost, now it seems sort of comical explanation to a couple of beat cops that this, multi-million-dollar instrument had been stolen.
Over the course of the next couple of weeks, it was a dominant story in all of our lives as the media descended on us, and then the FBI did their work with local authorities in Milwaukee and miraculously recovered the Lipinski within, I think, 9 or 10 days. It was an incredible adventure.
I have to admit that for the first 4 or 5 days, I was less than hopeful.
How did they solve it?
Somebody talked. It turned out it was a couple of guys, local guys. They found it in an attic down on the south side. It had probably been there the whole time. They found it inside a vinyl suitcase, inexplicably with a number of his sort of personal items, like he had a baby blanket in there from one of his kids, had some other things in there, and he had also left his driver's license in the suitcase. You can't make it up. I mean, there's his driver's license. Bing, the main guy. Took him he planned it for about 3 or 4 years. I mean, it was amazing to find that out. He knew where I lived, knew my daughter's names. You can't help but have it affect you psychologically. I mean, my kids were really young at the time. To this day, I'm still sort of, taking different routes and things like that.
How do you keep your violin safe now?
How do I keep it safe? I lock my door.
I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you.
If I tell you how I kept my violin safe, it wouldn't be safe anymore.
I'll leave it at that. It's not the same as it was, but it's, just common sense things, mostly.
If you're in a hotel room, if you're in a restaurant, if you're in a backstage, you don't ever leave it unguarded to go to the restroom.
It's not something that I leave anywhere except, when I take it to the luthier.
It's amazing to have this 300-year-old thing that is sort of living and breathing still.
You need to have a violin you trust, a violin you're comfortable with, and then 90% of what you hear, if not more, will be the player.
The first known owner of this instrument was Tartini. He's sort of the godfather of, modern violin playing and virtuosity.
I love to think about the adventures that this violin had before I was born and before I came into its life, hanging out, making music with Brahms and traveling all over. And of course, we've had so many adventures together, and it's amazing to think, what else it might do long after I'm gone. It's interesting when it comes to the value of a violin. Sound is a distant fourth in terms of priorities. It's, the name brand, which maker is it and how valuable are they considered? There's the provenance. What history does it carry? Who owned or played it in the past? Was it involved in certain premieres, etc.? And then, of course, there's the condition. Has it had damage and things like that? And then how it actually sounds is a distant fourth. And so, players will, if they're buying an instrument for themselves, of course, they'll often try to find an instrument that's not a name brand, but sounds gorgeous, so that all you're paying for is the sound.
All Strads do not sound great. That's not the reason that they're valuable. The reason they're valuable is they are made by Strad. The Lady Blunt Strad is known as the best conditioned Strad that exists. Tonally, it is not rated as a top 10 sounding instrument at all. It just sold at auction for over $15 million. The ones I make personally are selling for $36,000. The one behind me on that stand, that's my father's last violin, and I'm keeping it. But on the market, that would be well over $100,000.
This is the violin I'm making right now. You very carefully work out the thicknesses of the plate, and that's what governs sound. 20,000. My violins sell for 20,000. I've sold a lot to up-and-coming violinists or people who are selling their old violins, who get rid of their Stradivariuses. They just don't want the risk. So they'll get something like this, which will sound great, and they can play it. The interesting thing about the violin in the closet was that there was a second violin in the closet, which was a copy of the Davidoff Strad. Not a good copy. There are copies in the world, bench copies, what we call bench copies, that you can get pretty close to the original violin. And I looked at it and I thought, boy, that's the wrong color, and there are a whole lot of things that are not exactly right. A good violin, I'm sure, but I didn't really spend much time with that violin. My understanding is when the violin was stolen, that someone had substituted that violin sort of in the place in the closet for her Stradivarius. It's like stealing the Mona Lisa and putting a landscape up there. It's just not going to work. It's just a completely different thing.
Erika Morini's brother points out that her violin, which was made 268 years ago, is not something you could sell at a pawn shop.
This violin is unsellable. That's, thank God, unsellable. Too famous, everybody knows.
Somebody like me knows that if I stole this violin, or if I somehow found this violin, there's nothing I could do with it because it's just too famous. It's too well known. So it had to be somebody who didn't really know how hot it was going to get.
My scenarios all involve somebody like a crime of opportunity. People who had never done anything like that before doing it.
Unless somebody came in a ninja on the side of the building, there was just a handful of people that were most likely to have taken it.
Maybe something will come from this.
That's the hope, is that something will come from this. There are basically three possibilities of what happened. Some more likely than others. The first is that it was taken and very quickly brought out of the country before anyone could stop it. But it could have gone through the black market.
I picture this like James Bond villain with the vault and with the Stradivarius and the Gardner Museum, like fine art paintings that were all stolen. Like all of the stolen work is in this one, giant vault.
There's no evidence that's ever happened with a musical instrument, especially a specific musical instrument.
I don't think any serious professional criminal would risk that kind of a theft because there's too much heat around the object.
The second option is that they took it and then got freaked out and got rid of it.
Yeah.
Whoever took it could have then destroyed it, just to destroy the evidence and just leave it alone.
Probably in some cases they become destroyed because they're scary evidence once they realize that the thing that they've stolen is now radioactive.
That's the worst case scenario. The violin has been burned.
Oh, it's horrible to think, but I have wondered about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first fear. Someone threw it away because they were worried or scared. But understand this, if someone got that instrument and they saw on the news that it was worth millions of dollars, they're not going to throw it in the trash can. All right? They're just not. They're going to try and figure out a way to cash in on that $1 million.
Third is that someone took it and put it in their closet just to have. That's just because they wanted the violin.
They just buried it somewhere in a storage locker, under the bed, in the attic, something, hoping it just would die down.
It's certainly possible that somebody would freak out and just try to dump it and you'd never see it again. It would also not surprise me if somebody didn't know what to do with it and just hid it, with the hopes that someday it can surface again and there may be some story behind it where they can make a settlement or something like that.
Now that the statute of limitations, the criminal statute of limitations, is long gone, whoever took it, whoever that is, can resurface and say, let's make a deal. And I bet the estate would make a deal. That's what I bet.
objects like this can go underground for years and years and years. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that after 25, 26 years it would show up.
There are stories of stolen violins and cellos turning up decades later.
The thing too is, of the 6 or 7 people around her, Peter Sapphire, I understand, is dead. Frank Morini is dead. That may end up resulting in last man standing, so to speak, if the violin doesn't turn up and everyone else is deceased and their property has been collected and disposed of. You may end up with a process of elimination there. That may be another 30 years, though.
Can I show you something? Just stay right here. I have something I can bring.
Yeah.
Hold on. The only thing she ever gave me. Erika was big on saying, I will include you in my will. She probably said that to me 24 times. I will include you in my will. And I always said, please don't. You know, let me be a part of the violin. So finally, at one point, I was looking on a table. This is an ashtray shaped like a violin. And I said, oh, that's interesting. And she said, you like it? Take it. You may have it. So this, from the entire episode, this little ashtray is what I have from Erika Morini.
You know, I would just like to take a moment to talk about the loss, not just of an object, but of an object that makes beautiful music. You don't get that back. You know, that's what's missing. That's what's missing.
People wonder about valuations and why are these instruments so expensive and all that stuff. And one reason is that there's really nothing like them.
I guess all of us who do this and who respect, you know, the centuries of great violin making, hope that a violin like this gets back in the hands of a great musician.
Don't steal violins. It's just dumb. If you're going to steal something else.
That instrument is going to sound like her forever. I'm sure there's a science to it. You ask certain vibrations out of the wood, and then those become the default patterns for the instrument. Even if it's not played on for decades or even 100 years, it'll still sound like her. I think about that as well when the violin is sitting somewhere in hiding. You know, it's a part of her that lives on.